Hey, welcome to the Riverside. This is Avett's story about teenagers and horses. There's something I've learned as I've been paying more attention to the animals around here. They are all true to their nature and behave in ways that make sense to me. It's funny, though, that the species my species have tied their wagon to is humans, the only kind of animal I've ever met that does not live according to their nature. Perhaps that is because humans don't know what their nature is and are constantly trying to create new ways of being rather than being who they authentically are. Authentically. Whitaker taught me that word today. I love it. There are two teenagers living in our house, and if you ever needed an example of not understanding one's nature, look no further. Some of the things that come out of Talon's mouth make absolutely no sense. But since he's a 14-year-old boy, by definition, he is full of nonsense. He's a funny kid, though, and always brings a lot of energy to every situation he engages in. I've been around for a few winters, so I have seen that Talon is absolutely obsessed with skiing. Every day he is with us during the winter. He and Jay go over to Crystal Mountain to ski. Besides computers and Wi-Fi, there aren't many things he talks about. But this spring, something about his obsession is becoming more extreme. A couple weeks ago, he brought a couple noisy machines from his mom's house and a bunch of wood. From the first thing in the morning to bedtime, while he wasn't at school, he was outside making the noisy machines whir and buzz while he made a ramp, jump, and rails for a summer terrain park. I always wondered what they did while they were at Crystal Mountain, but now I have a better understanding. Talon gets to the top of the ramp, then he slides down and goes off the jump onto the rails where he spins around before landing on the ground with a thunk. Whitaker, Jig, and I have stood out there watching him do the same thing over and over, but he seems happy. We also have another teenager at home. She's a girl, and as different as night from day from Talon. Her name is Lavender, and she's 15, and has been a teenager as long as I've known her. While Talon is full of nonsense, I can't even begin to explain a teenage girl. One moment, she will be happy and trying to pick me up for a snuggle, and 30 seconds later, she'll be sobbing uncontrollably. Then she'll say something like, "I don't even know why I'm crying." I can tell she confuses Jig, so he rarely says much when she's talking. Mama seems to understand her and always tries to comfort her, so that is what I try to do as well. Lavender plays softball, which I don't understand because the ball isn't soft and it's way too big for my mouth. But she's also in choir, which I really like, because then I get to hear her sing songs if I wait outside her room. I have no idea what she does on the other side of that door, but she spends a lot of time in her room with the door closed. I can usually tell what kind of mood she's in based on the kind of songs she sings. Having two teenagers around the house makes for some entertaining times. A couple of moons ago, we got to go on a road trip with the whole family. We were in the car forever, and when I say forever, I mean it. Felt like we were driving and driving and driving and driving for hours. I sat on Mama's lap for the entire trip, which was way better than having to be in the way back like Whitaker. Talon and Lavender sat in the back seat for the whole trip and played on their phones. By the time we got to wherever we got to, I was tired of being in the car. Jig called it North Carolina, so I guess that's where we were. It was a beautiful place, and it was kind of nice because there was a river right outside the house. This river wasn't as wide as ours, but the water was just as cold. Talon found a way to play in the river and even made it across to the other side, and Lavender found another bedroom she liked to hang out in. On one of the days we got in the car while we were down there, Jig drove everyone to a place that had barns and some really strong smells. The moment we pulled into the driveway, I could tell there was a big animal smell. He parked the car and I was ready to get out to see what kind of animal was making that smell, but they locked Whitaker and myself in the car and left the windows down. I stood there watching as they walked over to the barn and talked to a lady. A few minutes later, they came out of the barn riding on top of the biggest animal I have ever seen. I thought Whitaker was big, but this animal was 10 times bigger than Whitaker. Talon was first one out of the barn, then Lavender, then Mama, and Jig was riding on the biggest of them. I wanted to bark at them and tell them I thought what they were doing looked a little dangerous, but they all had smiles on their faces, so I decided to keep my mouth shut. Then they rode off down a trail on the backs of those animals, and they were gone. And Whitaker and I had to just sit there and wonder what they were doing. After a really long time, they came back to the car and got in. I made my way around the whole car smelling them, and the scent was strong. I could tell it was bothering Whitaker that he couldn't get to everyone to smell them. But then I learned what kind of animal it was because Jig asked, "Did you have fun riding horses, kids?" They both said they did, and I knew I'd seen my first horse. Thanks for listening.